Over the last 5 years, Indonesian film, television, and the streaming industry has grown significantly. Before the global pandemic, the Indonesian film industry showed a very positive and consistent development, shown by the growing numbers of revenue, audiences, movie releases, and film crews and production teams. During 2020, with the closing of public cinema and mass quarantines, the emerging streaming and video on-demand market offers a lot of hope and opportunities for filmmakers and creators. The international screen community is closely watching Indonesia as a significant growth market for film and television. And some screen companies have been investing in shows made in Indonesia and acquiring Indonesian content for global distribution. The Ministry of Education and Culture responds to the trend by building collaborations with the international screen industry. With the collaboration, we managed to host a range of educational and outreach programs that serve as a media for students during the learning from home period, while also helping develop the film, TV, and streaming industry and support the filmmakers during these difficult times. Currently, Indonesia is home to one of Asia's most competitive and fastest growing television markets, ranking third in the region after China and India. The pandemic has shown the even stronger need of collaboration between public and private institutions to make this a successful trend and continue to grow. We are excited to partner with APROFI, Akatara, and the Motion Picture Association, MPA, in this film workshop that aims to share knowledge on the development process for making really high quality films and television, and to see new projects pitched by emerging filmmakers which have great potential. And I also would like to thank the guest speakers and the filmmakers who are participating in this film workshop for sharing your expertise and ideas. The film industry will continue to be one of Indonesia's strategic sectors and one of the primary ways to showcase Indonesian talent and culture to the rest of the world. Through mutual cooperation, let's advance Indonesian cinema to touch the minds and hearts of people everywhere and inspire a greater and wider global audience. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Belinda Louie with the Motion Picture Association. A career in film and television is not easy. It's often a daily struggle, both creatively and financially. The events of the past year have made it even more difficult for people in the creative community, given health and safety protocols and constraints on in-person interactions. Production, distribution, and exhibition sectors have been particularly hard hit by the pandemic. And though every effort is being made to get people back to work, big challenges remain. Incredibly though, last year in the Asia Pacific, video on-demand subscription grew 34% to reach $16.3 billion in revenues, confirming that audiences are still keen on viewing quality content at home or on the go. In fact, demand for screen entertainment is higher than ever. In Indonesia, we've witnessed key global, regional, and local services that are investing on making streaming more accessible to the largely mobile audience. Those services are commissioning local productions and acquiring shows to expand their content libraries. Talented Indonesian filmmakers are getting justified recognition for their work. It was announced that director Muli Suraya, who helmed Malina the Murderer in 4 acts, would direct Jessica Alba in the new Netflix thriller Trigger Warning. And late last year, Joko Anwar's Impetigore was selected by Indonesia as its national representative in the Academy Awards Best International Feature Film category. There is widespread recognition that the Indonesian screen community has a great depth of talent and the commitment to develop the skills needed to produce high-quality entertainment for local and increasingly international audiences. Today's discussion focuses on the vitally important topic of the development process. Our guest speakers will share knowledge about the distinctions of East versus West storytelling and to explore how best to develop stories for family viewing. We also look forward to hearing pitch presentations from some of Indonesia's rising talent, and we wish them well in their future careers. I'd like to say a huge thank you to our partners in planning this event, the Producers Association of APROFI, Akatara Film Business Forum and Market, the Ministry of Culture and Education, the Ministry of Tourism and the Digital Economy, and the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. We're also grateful to the Australian Film, Television and Radio School and the Asia Pacific Screen Awards for coming together and sharing in this valuable exchange of knowledge and expertise. The Motion Picture Association is delighted to work with such long-time close friends and colleagues and to contribute to today's program. It follows many years of collaboration on film workshops, pitch competitions, World IP Day screenings, and educational campaigns, all aimed at developing a growing and sustainable screen industry ecosystem that provides great jobs for young Indonesians and exceptional entertainment for audiences here and around the world. I wish you all an enjoyable and stimulating film workshop. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Edwin Nazir from the Association of Indonesian Film Producers, APROFI. We are very happy to continue to be part of this very important workshop. As we all know, this past year has been a very difficult situation for the film industry and for all of us. On the other hand, in this pandemic situation, people are now seeking for more entertainment, one of which by watching movies. Therefore, we as filmmakers are being asked to continue to create better stories and to produce great films. I do appreciate the long cooperation between APROFI, MPA, and Akatara, and would hope for continuous cooperation in many more years to come. I would also like to convey my gratitude for the support from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, Ministry of Education and Culture, and Ministry of Communication and Information. I hope this workshop would give some insight for everyone to remain hopeful, and I do believe together we will get through this very difficult time. We will grow strong again, and now it's the time to be back at the cinema.
Hi everybody, I'd like to welcome you all to today's guest speakers. We're really pleased to have from the international industry Mailita Aga. She is an exceptionally experienced content executive. She has had many years working with Netflix and BBC Studios. Joining her to give another masterclass is Associate Professor Peter Aquilea. Professor Aquilea is Head of Screenwriting at the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. So we're exceptionally pleased to have her joining us today. Joining us for the judging process a little later is a well-known and highly respected actor and producer from Australia, Aaron Farso. Aaron has his own production company, and we look forward to his remarks as we look at the pitch competition later today. Joining us from Indonesia, we're delighted to have Linda Ghazali. Linda from Magma Entertainment will be moderating the discussion today. Linda is well known for her family film company, Magma Entertainment. She's a member of APROFI, and she's also a recipient of the MPA ACE Award for her work, really helping out enlighten people about copyright and the importance of protecting creative content. We have with us Mira Lesmana. Mira is one of the most experienced producers in Indonesia, and she's responsible for really bringing people back into the cinema for some memorable movies. Kimo Stambal makes up our Indonesian speaker panel. Kimo is an experienced producer and director and has recently been working on some projects for streaming companies such as Netflix and his show The Night Comes For Us. Moderating the discussion with our pitch contestants is Nora Mediana. Nora is a highly experienced film executive who's traversed many different types of jobs in the industry, and we're delighted to have them all. Now let's go on to the presentations.
Hi everyone, thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with you today. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces, and it's always great to be talking to members of the film and television fraternity in Indonesia. So thank you for the invitation, MPA and Stephen in particular. What I'm going to spend a little bit of time on today is the subject of Eastern and Western storytelling. what's the difference? For me, really, I, you know, in terms of my own career, because I started my career in storytelling in India, then lived and worked in Singapore, Jakarta, followed by London, the United States, then back in Singapore before moving to India, and back to Singapore for the third time. So I really feel like I've had the experience of being both an Eastern and a Western storyteller. And so hopefully my perspectives, and I'll try to throw in a little bit of my own personal experiences with some of this, is helpful to all of you. So if I go to the next slide. Ultimately, for me, what I've learned over these many years of traveling and working in the content industry across the world, it's really that content is a reflection of who we are. So if we examine that a little bit to get under the skin of what makes Eastern and Western storytelling quite different, you know, in many cases, it is on account of the society in which the story is being told. So you will find Western storytelling very much an individualistic point of view, just like society is. Whereas in the East, we are, you know, particularly Indonesia, which is a very collectivist society. We like consensus. We want to portray our context as much as our individual point of view. Society matters. Similarly, if you look at the expression of conflict in the West, argument, you know, the image that immediately comes to mind for me is the Kardashian show, where people can put themselves out there. They can, you know, in the worst of situations, air very dirty laundry in public, but it, you know, can be argumentative, can be upfront. Whereas in the East, we come from a place of emotion. We come from a place of how we feel rather than what we say. And often what we feel most, we may not say. And obviously that also will have an impact on how we tell stories. Similarly, if you look at indulgence versus restraint, you find that, you know, whether it is violence, and this is not to say that we don't have some films with a lot of violence or extreme emotions in the East. Of course we do, but I'm talking about where the mean lies, where the median lies, where the majority of thinking around these subjects lies. And you find in Western storytelling a lot of indulgence, which you can also look at as financial indulgence, the ability to use you know, big scenes, multiple cameras, filming from very many angles to make just a tiny little point. Whereas in the East, we are more restrained, but also in terms of resources, we sometimes have to use a lot more restraint. And then taking a very sort of extreme comparison, just to underline my point, really, in the West, death is the end. And in the East, in many cultures, there is reincarnation, and so there is a regeneration. And of course, if you are watching Cinetrons, you'll notice that this happens a lot, right? Relationships start, end, start again. Similarly, life starts, ends, and starts again. So where I'm headed with this is really to say that you know, when you're thinking about what is Eastern and what is Western storytelling, you always should be looking first at a reflection of who you are and where that story is coming from. But ultimately, human experiences are universal. And I think this is where I'd like to say that my own personal experience in making content in so many different cultural contexts has really made a point for me of saying that actually we all have the same human experiences, and the very best of content always speaks to that very basic human feelings of love, anger, hate, compassion, devotion. So we all fall in love. We all covet familial ties. We all want to belong to a family or to some unit. And if we experience betrayal, we most often want to, though we might not always take revenge. We most often want to take revenge. So what I wanted to do now is just take a look at a case study of how a similar set of universal values, universal experiences can get nuanced in the cultural context. So I think you must, most of you be familiar with this Korean series. It's called World of Married. And it tells the story of a woman who, she's a doctor, she's a strong professional working woman, but over the course of certain instances and incidences in her life, she finds out that her husband has a mistress. They have a son, they have an idyllic life, but all of that gets shattered. And over the course of the series, you see how she discovers it, finds out, and no spoilers here, finds out that many of the people around her, friends, family, supporters, have known, and then how she discovers his both business weaknesses and additional betrayals, and then ultimately how she seeks revenge. But if you look at that story on the surface of it, it's talking about the universal themes of infidelity and revenge, right? Now, these are themes that we all feel, regardless of where we're from, East or West. But in this series, she's a Korean woman. And so you see a lot of her vulnerability. And I've deliberately selected the images that you see on the screen now to show you the nuances of how a Korean woman, in spite of having been scorned or having been feeling a sense of anger and revenge, is always looking for reconciliation. That is always her first priority. And so that universal theme has on top of it the layers of very Korean culture. Before we go to the next slide, I want to play a video because this show, the World of the Married, is actually a format. And I'm using the formats because I think formats help underline the point around the same theme of universal truths and cultural context. So if we can play the promo now.
My thoughts keep running over the last 2 years. Birthdays, holidays. And we've had sex and I've told him that I love him. Walking around in the bedroom without any clothes on, thinking he likes what he sees. He was lying the whole time. You're having an affair, aren't you?
Oh, you know when you're alone, I'm holding on. Oh,
It's probably just sex, isn't it?
when you're alone, I'm holding on
I found his other phone in the boot.
to your soul. Your soul.
You really think I could do that to you?
I don't want to prove it. I don't want to catch you. I want you to be honest, unprompted, to just tell me.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to hold your hand.
So this format is Dr. Foster, and Dr. Foster is a BBC format that was written by a very brilliant young playwright in the UK, picking up on the same theme. But if you look at it here, this same universal theme of infidelity and revenge comes with very different imagery and a very different Dr. Foster. So, here the poster is less about the relationship between a man and woman. It's very much about a woman with this is striking pose of someone who maybe is more cold, more willing to shut out her emotion in order to exact revenge. So you see in the UK version, vengeance and justice, which are very, very important values in British culture, are very front and center with the very same story of infidelity and revenge in that context. And if I provide you with one more example of the same format, this is the Indian version. I was personally the producer of this version, and we looked at that story and we said, wow, that's a really powerful theme, you know, a woman actually doing something about it, but Indian women don't. So how do we take those same themes of infidelity and revenge, and how do we make them relatable and relevant in the Indian context? So here you see, you know, the image, even the poster image, is very different, because you see what you would expect of a husband and a wife in India, and you know, the shattering of that paradigm. Again, you know, there's other things like the duty of care and shame. So in the Indian version of Dr. Foster, which we called Out of Love, also evocative of, you know, love leaving the relationship, the duty of care that a husband has over his wife sort of being evaporated. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of like, I as the wife, I feel shame. As a husband, I feel shame. All of those themes we brought out in the story to make the revenge more palatable and relatable to an Indian audience. And the show, you know, we all know what a huge hit World of Married has been. The Korean version, Dr. Foster was the highest rated British show in the year in which it was released. Out of Love was one of the titles on Hotstar in India, and it did phenomenally well for them as well, which just underlines the point, I think, even more, that when you strike upon a universal theme and you really capture it in cultural context, you combine the very best of values from a storytelling point of view and relatability for an audience. So if you look at all those three together, I think, you know, hopefully the point settles in. Same story, same values, very different when you watch the shows themselves. So just before, you know, I just want to explain why I used format. You know, with a scripted format, basically you've got a story that has ideally been tested because it's done well in the country in which it was first produced. And you can see clear and identify clear universal themes, but you also have the benefit of very well-developed characters, hopefully, right? That's why you would look at a format for adaptation. But and well-developed characters are extremely important for any story that is a serialized story to carry itself from episode 1 to episode 7, 8, 10, 12. Because limited series are very much built on character strength. And adapting those universal truths becomes something you don't need to worry about. The character themselves is someone that you can look at and say, right, she's a woman who is a professional working woman, but how does a woman in the workplace look in cultural context? How does she relate to her extended family? So for example, in Dr. Foster, the British version, it's a nuclear family, husband, wife, and son. In Out of Love, we had a father-in-law, mother-in-law, multiple other family ties that impacted her feeling of shame, her feeling of wanting to take revenge, but in a way that wouldn't upset the social system that she lives within. So making character motivations relatable became a key task in the adaptation of these formats, and building a world that felt like it you know, it's a world that belongs in the East or the West, depends on the audience that you're trying to address. Even if every single one of the Dr. Fosters, if you like, was doing this fundamentally same thing, the world in which she was wreaking havoc was quite different. So the reason I use that as an example is because I think it really underlines the point around storytelling being fundamentally the same. But there are other differences as well. Pacing is something that I'd like to spend a minute on, because I think in Western storytelling, you know, English and language, English is a language that moves very quickly. And many of our, certainly Indonesian, we take a little bit longer to explain things because our vocabulary and our use of language is different. Neither is good or bad, but being aware of the difference between the amount of time spent conveying a thought and reacting to a thought is quite different in Eastern and Western storytelling. And then moving to the sort of behind the scenes side of it, not just what you see or how you edit, but pre-production and planning is an area where I have personally seen a huge difference between the amount of time spent, certainly in the UK and in Hollywood on planning for filming, planning for visual effects, pre-production, readings, rehearsals, setups, things like that. That's certainly something that I've noticed be quite different. And the elephant in the room is always budget. But I have a slightly different point of view on that. I mean, I do know, obviously, we do know that a budget is a huge constraining factor when you have a lot of ambition. But ultimately, audiences, as we saw with Parasite, for example, which may not have been the most expensive in terms of special effects or video effects, that is a story from the East that traveled extremely well to the West, which I'm sure ultimately is the ambition all of us have, is to have our stories reach a wider audience. It doesn't have to be about money. I think if you spend the right amount of time in planning and pre-production and thinking about your characters and really working on them again and again, then the actual scaling of the production is something that, it just depends on the story itself, right? If whether it's a very grounded story in the inner city slums or a big epic drama that requires a lot of special effects. That's choice of story. That's not necessarily something that should constrain you, whether you're in the East or in the West. And then, something that I think we as Asian filmmakers and creators probably don't spend enough time doing is thinking about how we want to talk about our content. Often we'll make a great film, but we won't necessarily think through how we pitch it, how we present it through whether it's the festival circuit or through social media conversations. Sometimes we use a lot of behind the scenes information very early in the process, and it may take away from some of the mystery we want to create leading up to the actual launch of the film. So I think being mindful about how you promote your content is something that American, particularly Hollywood companies, have been historically very good at doing, and probably Eastern storytelling doesn't spend enough time on all the stuff, the frills around that, which studios have made a living out of. So those are my sort of thoughts around the differences between storytelling in the East and the West, and I hope that was helpful, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Malita. I think we can probably at this point, we'll obviously regather for the conversation, but Pia, can we go straight into your presentation? Is that okay?
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you all, and I hope that that my talk can actually build on Melita's really valuable information that she actually shared with us then. And it seems to be one of the trickiest questions in the marketplace, and that is, what's going to be a great idea and how are we going to develop that idea into something that audiences really love. And it's really wonderful that Melita actually shared the Dr. Foster example, because that is so much about what we do these days, is really looking for IP that, has already resonated with audiences, and a lot of them do hold these universal truths. So in a way, they've been pre-tested. But also what, Melita spoke about, which is really significant and important, is how we adapt that for the marketplace or for particular audiences. And that's, something that is a really important creative tool. I mean, some people say, oh, it's a constraint, but I actually believe that that's not true, that constraints provide sometimes, or often the case, some of the most innovative work that we've actually seen. So what I want to do today is really looking at the idea of how you get an idea and then how do you bring it to screen. And I've gone a bit agnostic on screen. So, you know, Melita was talking about television, but what I'd really like to talk about is, or take you through, was the process. We worked with industry last year to actually produce a VR animation series. And it's interesting because at the heart of it was Alice in Wonderland, which was a universal story, but we were targeting it to a completely different technology and to a bigger market. We wanted it to be, because it was quite conceptual, wanted it to aim for a general family audience experience. So that was really important and significant in the creation of this particular project. And, you know, as, you know, we've seen, pitch documents have become beautifully graphically designed these days, and we can see the idea and it's all gorgeous, but what we really need to understand is what, you know, producers are looking for is what's, you know, behind those pictures. And what I'm hoping to do today is just take you through some of the techniques that we're using at school and in the industry in order to take that idea from a concept and build it into a viable product ready for market. So a lot of that's done these days in writers' rooms. And writers' rooms, which the kinds of writers' rooms that I'm talking about are those early stage, like in TV, when we got the go ahead for the next season, you had a basic idea of where you were going to actually take the show and take the story, but you didn't know what the details were. And that's what we've got out in the marketplace, a lot of really good ideas, but how do we convert those ideas into more long form dramas, and how can we convert them so that they're going to be seen by a wide audience? So, you know, this process is sometimes called breaking the story in the writer's room. It's a collaborative process, so it would involve, you know, partners that are heavily invested in the product on the creative side, but also on, you know, the marketing and distribution stage as well. But it's actually a really interesting concept, breaking the story, because it's part of the writing process. And what do we do in that? We really figure it out. We drill down to details. Quite often we fight with the story, you know, because what we're trying to do is trying to find the best way of communicating this story, using the format, using the technology, and knowing the audience that it's going to be presented to. And some of the really important things, you know, is we need to establish some of the ground rules. And that includes, you know, what's your log line, what's your theme, what's your storyline, a story world, I should say, before we start getting into the nuts and bolts of actually going, okay, let's develop this log line, let's get 5 beats. You know, we need to totally immerse ourselves into the story world process. So these days, to break your story is something that a lot of professional writers use and use also on film scripts. They're not necessarily just delegated to television shows, and that's why I wanted to bring a VR animation project in to show you. So you've got to turn your pitch from a vague idea into a concrete storyline, and we need to have this particular, you know, document approved before we can start writing the actual draft. So that's the journey that we're actually taking you on. Okay, so this particular story is called Finding Alice, and it was a really interesting and wonderful story to actually work on. The producer had been doing a lot of test scenes using VR and animation technology, which is always great. And one of the things that we found was that to really be able to understand working in developing a story, you need to really understand the format that you're working in. So one of the first things that we did in order to develop this great unique idea where, you know, he wanted to deal with mental health issues and issues of coming of age, the family coming of age story, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But he wanted to, you know, have that as a VR animation experience, and that would be an experience that both adults and children can enjoy. So all of that information was really important. So we had to immerse ourselves in the technology first and really understand what the writer had to tell us. And up on screen, I just want to give acknowledgement to the team that actually did this project, because quite often you don't see those hardworking bodies there in the story room. So we had a mix of people from both industry as well as our graduate students in that program. Okay, so we sort of knew what our log line was. We know that, you know, at some stage she's, you know, she gets separated from her best friend. She goes on this wild journey down the, you know, virtual wonderland. And we know that the real and the digital world start to blur in this particular world. And as she enters this world, she starts to lose sight of what's real and not real. Already you can sort of see a lot of parameters around, you know, social media and young people. So we needed to move it from that log line. Okay, so really we knew that we needed to do some building in this particular set of writing rooms. We had to go from what was really just a concept and a log line. Well, we had to articulate it into a log line, and then we had to, you know, move it on to a one-page synopsis. And, you know, I won't explain what that is. It's there up on your screen, but you can certainly see that it's, you know, a document that we keep revisiting because it really needs to chisel down and really evidence to the person that's reading it that they know exactly what's happening in the beginning, the middle, and the end of this particular season, show, etc. Okay, so the first thing that we needed to do once we really understood the technology is that we really needed to know where the world, where it was set. And that sometimes takes you a long time. Quite often, and I think all of us here today have all read pictures that tell us a lot of backstory, but they don't actually tell us where the actual story on screen happens. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. Everything that we're talking about in those first days of being in a writer's room is really all about, you know, setting the world, making sure everybody in the room understands what the backstory is, because we really need to move forward with our story and understand where our starting point is going to be. The other really important thing to establish, and as you can tell, we've not even entered at this stage any scripting or storylines moving forward. We're really, you know, integrating and digging deep into backstory and trying to understand what the goals and aims of the project is. So then we spend a lot of time really consolidating for the group what is the genre, concepts and themes that we're dealing with. And, you know, we spent a day doing this, and, you know, I'm just going to go quickly through what we came up with. So these are the key terms that we came up with. But one of the things that I found as a working process is if you're using this kind of process, establishing the story world, then talking about the themes. What we're actually doing in the first day of our writer's room is really gathering all this information that we can compile. So at the end of the writer's room day, which, you know, we establish the story world and establish the themes, we can then go off and write these things up in our Bible. So it becomes a record of our journey of how we actually arrived to this story. So it's all useful. In this one, online and offline social media was really important. The other thing was for, you know, young adults especially, you know, it's about identity in that social media world. You know, identity is complicated, learning to accept who you are, caught in an identity crisis. Again, all of these things are universal themes that Melita was talking about earlier. And identity in social media we decided that that was going to be the controlling idea. The most important thing was the story that we were going to beat out of our story room would, you know, really be focused on this concept that we really wanted what we did to really identify with young adults, to understand that, you know, all of these things happen and become better informed about how you can navigate your way in what is a very, you know, sophisticated social media world. So we also really talk about, and again, this becomes a bit of a production reality, just like Melita talked about earlier. It's about, well, how many characters? But most importantly, who's our protagonist? Whose story are we going to follow? And who's the antagonist in this story? So, you know, Alice in Wonderland, you will see all our characters are sort of named after something in the social media or online world, because that was part of developing the concept. You know, they could be considered people who are sort of on the same team, who are going on this journey together. And then we had all these other characters, and these characters were really inhabitants of this world. They weren't as important to us because they were all symbols, they represented something, but they had backstories, and we thought it was really important to, you know, to actually tell their particular stories, because they connected so much to the theme and so much to the premise of, you know, social media and identity. So we're able to gather all of that information and put that aside, and then sort of say, we're maybe in day 2 here, start talking about, oh, how are we actually going to build this story? And we can see that even, you know, for the workshops that we've been looking at, you've been looking at ideas, some of them have quite distinct beginning, middles and ends, and others where we go, wow, that could be the start of the story. Oh, that could be the start of the story. But we know essentially to build a story to resonate with audiences, it's a little bit like constructing a tent. We need to have certain structures in place. And the first 2 structures that I say are really important and really significant is knowing where your screen story is going to start and where your screen story is going to end. And then we know that we need to be moving our story forward. So at some point of time, a really critical moment's going to occur, and I call that the apex. It's sort of like the center pole on your tent. Now, I don't do camping very well. I prefer hotels. But it's a great analogy, because really what we're actually seeing is that we're starting somewhere, we're building up the story, and then we're building down the story. So once we've got that midpoint in place, then we know we need to find, you know, some turning points on either side of the guy ropes down the side that you've got there. And essentially, we've now got the spine for our story, which is great and it's fantastic. It means we can move on. So we were able, once we sort of understood what we were looking for and looking for 5 strong beats to be able to tell our story, to really start to move into, you know, story beats, you know. So firstly, we reduced the story. We said, okay, this is where we start. We start when Alice is sad that her friend has left. She's gone away for the summer. She's lonely. She looks at herself in her bedroom mirror. All of a sudden, a rabbit appears in the mirror. He reads her diary, and all of a sudden, he tempts her, he engages her and then tempts her to Wonderland and tells her that she got to meet the Queen of Likes. So all of a sudden, someone who was really lonely, all of a sudden she's got this opportunity. She's got all these new friends in this new world, and she takes the plunge. So that's how we pegged our 5 story beats for this particular first episode. And you can really see how it sets up the world and how it takes us on a journey and also leads us to where we can go in the next episodes. So as we progress the story rooms, we actually started to see that there were significant storylines operating, an A story, a B story, and a C story. And with all these wonderful ideas that really are coming out of, Indonesia's great screen culture, is these fantastic A stories. But A stories do need to be supported by B stories. And B stories traditionally actually resonate themes and resonate moments and hark back to the themes that you wanted. So B stories are really important for you. It's also an opportunity for the audience to take a break from the main characters and actually sort of just put their mind on an associated story. It lets us as writers then advance the story the next time we go back into it. So all of this information we're sort of gathering, and at the end of each night, we're putting it all together into this Bible, because, one day we're going to have to hire a writer. It might be someone in the room, and they will have to fly with actually writing this story. And they've all got to fit together. They're all got to be, uniquely tied together. So we can't let any of them go rogue. So we need to ensure all of this happens in the story room. Okay, so basically what we were doing is that we were building the tent poles, for the next 5 chapters. And we decided that the A story was really about what we saw on screen, what the everyday plot points she went through when you were on screen. And then the B story, it was really going to be the implicit meaning. And in our case, the B story, because it was virtual reality, was really the viewer. And it was the viewer's journey in this particular case, but it could be 2 other characters in your drama. And the C story, what does this part of the story about society, young adulthood, and the nature of friendship? And I think then we knew, okay, we're ready to move and we're ready to progress. So I'll stop sharing my screen there. What I wanted to do in that presentation was really give you some insights on how what we do in writers' rooms can be really important tools to not only collaborate with a team of writers, but even as a solo writer or a co-writer, it actually establishes some really important foundations. So I like to think about the story world and the themes that we build as the ground, the beautiful fertile ground that we're pitching our tent on. But quite often we don't see that. All we see is the 5 story beats. We see the tent above the ground, but we're actually very, very closely connected to those roots underneath, and they sustain the storytelling process. So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Pia, and thank you, Marlita, for sharing your take on how a family storytelling between the East and the West, as well as how it come about, actually has given us some enlightenment. It's also very exciting for me because we also have the Indonesian filmmakers, Mira Lesmana and Kimo Stambul also joining the panel to actually decide on the take between the East versus the West, because I think a lot of the Indonesian filmmakers that you've come across, Mailita, in your work in Asia, and also Pia in looking at the whole storytelling, I think it's very interesting to note whether or not what had been presented by the both of you actually connects or relate to both Mira and Kimo. I'm opening up the discussion so that we can actually have a free flow in order to touch upon whatever that both Mailita and Pia had already mentioned. And by doing some sharing, I think then we can know each other better and know how the Indonesian storytelling also come about and has been experienced by the both filmmakers in order to give a different perspective. But Mira, maybe you would like to start to say something, or Kimo? Kimo can go first. All right, Kimo, you have the privilege because you're the only male among us. Come on.
Oh, okay. So, thank you guys. It's a very well presentation stuff that actually we as a filmmaker here, something that we actually, dealing with everyday stuff, because every day we as a filmmaker, we always finding ideas, developing something, especially right now because of this the birth of the platforms. Suddenly Indonesian filmmakers have to be able to keep up with this growing industry, and from that we as a filmmaker try to find an idea that actually it's something that can universally work or globally works. So our audience right now is becoming larger, and for that definitely we have to find something that everybody can relate to. I think that is what I felt right now as a film director, as a writer, as also a producer, that we have to find something that universally or globally people can understand and also can relate to. And all of that, I mean, by Mailita's and also Pia's presentation, all of that, it's it's there. I mean, it's actually something that we have to put that in mind in terms of if we are developing a story. But also, I think I could add that we also bringing up something unique, because we are Indonesians, right? I mean, we have something that that the world should see as well, and everything that universal or globally understandable theme that the global audience gonna watch. We have to be able to sip in a little bit of our culture, a little bit of our characters, and a little bit of the the excitement that we have. My particular comfort zone in this industry is it's still a genre filmmaking. So that sort of stuff, action, thriller, horror, and of course our Indonesia is that we have a lot of that, and but it's sometimes it's particularly very focused on particular area that maybe not global audience understand it. But with the structure that we have, what Mailita and Pia already presented, we have to sort of blend it into that, and we have to see that this could work, and this is going to be really awesome if we can merge that and get the theories and the implementation that we need to do to be able to get a wider audience, the global audience, to understand it. For instance, Korea definitely doing a very good job in terms of presenting themselves as a Korean, and we as an Indonesian can easily follow and can easily connect with the characters, because I think the format itself, it's already being universal. And we are in the stage of learning that, because platform is very early for us. We are very new to the global audience in terms of watching, sitting in front of television or in mobile devices. We are very new to that. I mean, still in the early stage, and we are now still studying how we can get that in a global sense. Because my earliest career is always wanting to be that, wanting to have a global audience in my films. So I think we are hopefully in the right track, and hopefully can with this knowledge that we have to be understandable of universal theme, and also understanding of global audiences. Hopefully we can make the content more more bigger and more
relatable.
Relatable.
Yeah. But Mir, do you have the same kind of essence, or do you actually have a different opinion?
I think I would like just to add what Kimo was saying. I think this word relatable has become so important in everything that we work on. I think that's always what either the platforms or the investors or whoever is involved in financing, or even the producers talking with the writers, that it has to be relatable. But on the issue of this East and West, which is very, very, very interesting, I think the Indonesian filmmakers have struggled with this over the years. As Kimo was saying, that everybody really wants their work to speak for the world, to be universal. But I think at the beginning, we're talking about maybe 10 years or 15 years back, I think we had the wrong way of thinking, that we tried to understand how, let's say, the European or the Americans would understand the story. And I think as we go along, we know that, like Kimo was saying, it's the strength or our local touch to the stories, or what Mailita was presenting as well, about the uniqueness of how Asians, for example, or us Indonesian, looking at the story. And somehow, as you touch the local issues, the Western world would somehow get into it and see it as unique and interesting. I think that's also what the Koreans are doing. So I think, I think we have to go to that right direction in making it universal, but yet sticking to that human experiences that we are familiar with, to our audience, rather than trying to make sure that the Western audience
would love to see right?
it. I think it's the way also when we see a Western story, it's the same. We know it's an American story or an Australian story or a British story, and that's what makes it interesting for us to understand how people are different in looking at things. But I would also like to add how interesting it is, Pierre's presentation, because the word writer's room is also only recently familiar to us in Indonesia.
Right.
We weren't aware of this, let's say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and just recently we get to know how it should work, and we're learning it together. We've gone through a few workshops, even me. I've been in this industry for I don't know how long, and I was sitting down in a special workshop. I think it was 5 years ago, learning about writer's room and what happens in a writer's room. So thank you for both of you. That's just my intake on those.
On that note, I'd like to actually get some opinion from Mailita. Mailita, given your work and experience, you know a little bit more about the Eastern culture, how it's being perceived by the Westerners. And nowadays, with the digital platform, as Kimo mentioned and Mbak Mira mentioned, how interested, how is this a big commodity, so to speak, while you are looking for some content in the past? Because you must have been seeing all the ideas coming through. Is this a big commodity? Is this something that's quite interesting for the Westerners as well to look into how the Eastern people are behaving, and especially in the family? Because when we're talking family, the setting is father, mother, children, uncles, aunties. Sometimes it just stop in the nuclear family setting. But how has it been in your experience with regards to this family setting storytelling?
Thanks, LG. And, I've been lucky enough to have a few conversations with Mira, and haven't met Kimo personally, but seen the kind of work being done in Indonesia. And I really think, the storytelling, the skills, the passion is all there. I'll just say one thing, picking up on what you said earlier, Mira, about thinking about how to tell stories and getting into a writer's room, and thinking about what people in Europe might want to see. In my experience, I've not been in a conversation in the UK or the US where people are saying, how is my work going to be perceived by Koreans or Japanese or French or German or whatever? I think let's be confident. As storytellers, as filmmakers, as people with something to say, let's be confident about what we have to say for our own creative expression to our own natural audience first. I think that's where it has to start from. Ultimately, I believe that we can get a little bit distracted by, Netflix will take my film to the world. I think first we make a film that we love, or we make a series that we love, and that we believe touches upon some universal themes. And it is the most local of stories that is most likely to travel globally now. Yeah, that's certainly what I would say. And because we have such great talent in Indonesia, that shouldn't be a problem.
Understood. And I think there is more to be digged and plowed through, definitely. Now, in a family setting, usually, the storytelling is so close to us. It's as if we know what's it's all about and what it's going through and how it would like to be perceived. Now, Pia, in your experience, does the 3-act structure still works quite well in a family setting and storytelling, or does that become too rigid to a certain extent? Because then the anticipation, the surprise elements and everything else is how does it work? Or should we actually just break out of the boundary every now and then? Because then it depends on what the storytellers or what the filmmakers would like to actually present, first of all. I'd like to get your take on that.
Wow, that's such a great question. It's interesting to sort of, understand where a story is actually, coming from, and, whether a 3-act structure will work on or not. Essentially, I believe that the basis of all storytelling is 3 acts. Back from, the times that the Greeks were telling stories. So it's a true and tried formula. The other thing I would say is that it's really important to master that, 3-act structure, or in TV, it can be a 5 or 6-act structure. Because only once you've actually mastered that are you able to bend the rules and innovate. And this is something that is a really big research area of mine, because, we're training very high-level filmmakers, and they come into our program for 2 years. And we base it on the Danish film school model, because our charter is to provide for the Australian government you know, high flyers, people who are going to tell great stories that are going to travel the world. It's sort of a bit scary as a KPI. But essentially, they need to learn, firstly, they need to know everything else that's out there in their genre, in their field. You know, they really need to understand their domain. This is what they do. This is why all of a sudden the Danish TV industry turned itself around, and it did it primarily by running these high-end programs with industry, with I'm not going to call them students because they're not students, they're interns, and or you know, they're like intern doctors. They're being thrown in, they're working with everybody we work with is professional, they're with the networks, all of that kind of thing. And you know, the Danish Film School did the same thing. It worked with its television, and its television was in a disastrous state, completely disastrous. And of course, you know, now we understand, we're, you know, relishing in the fruits of that labor because, you know, they are the very same graduates who are now leading this, you know, revolutionary Nordic noir film concept. And I remember, you know, working in 2000 with the European Television Foundation, and that's what we were trying, you know, in the early days of the EU, they were trying to find this one story that was going to resonate with all countries in the EU. And it just didn't, it's too hard, you know. But essentially the Danes, you know, picked up on this, and they found a model based on universal storytelling, and it's proved it because how many different formats have been done, you know, in different parts of the world of that particular show. So it is possible, but it requires a mobilization, and that is a mobilization to, you know, for industry to work with hand in hand with emerging writers and directors in order to execute a model like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, actually, if I can just underline that. I think, you know, what has been done by the Australian government, by the Danish government, by the British government many years ago to support the creative industries is something that I think not just Indonesia, but most Asian countries don't get that same level of support and, frankly, investment. And you know, and it's not about you know, because people need help. No, it's because creative industries need support. They need training, just like, you know, just like aviation or consumer products or banking. The creative industry should be a bona fide, well-recognized profession, first of all, for young people coming out of college, and then supported through their careers. So I think that will certainly help make embolden filmmakers in Indonesia and creators.
How can we also, oh, go ahead.
That also allows us to breed a really confident group of filmmakers that once they're grounded in the foundations of what makes a story work, then they can innovate and bring those wonderful innovations to a world stage, you know. And it may not happen until, you know, 5 years after, you know, they've gone and taken this training. Sometimes it doesn't happen until 10 years after, but you need to invest in that. It's really important.
Yeah. Thank you for that note, because I think nowadays what we are looking for definitely is the exposure, because then what could be the most characteristics of the Indonesian family storytelling can then be told in the nitty-gritty parts, because I think generally speaking, we know family setting, East and West, there are a lot of similarities, but it's the differences that don't get underlined in a sense. And Mira used to actually make a lot of the family setting storytelling. She's one of the person who break through in actually having a children's storytelling at the time when the industry was definitely dormant in the early 2000s. And then at this point in time, I heard that Mira is working on rejuvenating that IP, I do believe, the Sherina, Petualangan Sherina, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what actually drives you there? Because Petualangan Sherina was one of the children's storytelling that awake the Indonesian film industry in the early 2000s when it was very much dormant. So now after another 20 years, you're celebrating this, right? Into another 20 years, 2 decades. What drives you and what is something that motivates you truly, Mbak Mir? Please share that with us.
Yeah, all right. I guess it took me too long, as with the What's with Love. Ada Apa Dengan Cinta took 14 years for the sequel, and this one's going to take 20 years. But basically, I wanted to rejuvenate the story by making a new, almost like a reborn. Just make a new today's story of Sherina's adventure. Or Petualangan Sherina. But at the same time, I'm working on the lead actress Sherina on another project. So I was telling her how I'm going to, make a new story of this. I think it's time that the new generation have, a new film that could belong to them. But then she said, "But I'm still alive. Why are you doing a new one?" So basically, she said, "Let's do a sequel, and then you can do whatever you want with the story." So I found that very interesting, and of course, that boils down into if I were to make a sequel, she's going to be in the late 20s.
Right.
Who is it going to be for? So that is something interesting also to decide. But for me, I think in Indonesia. I find back in the year 1999, when I was producing a children's story, it's basically trying to find a new audience for the cinema. Right. Because like you said, it was in the dormant period in the 90s. And there was such bad, I think Indonesian audience at the time think that the quality of Indonesian film is so bad and that they don't have trust in it. So I thought making a children's story, making a story for a new generation, they don't have that history. If they don't like the film, they're going to say, "I don't like the film." If they like the film, they're going to say, "I like the film." So I thought that's a good base.
No baggage.
Yeah, but again, if you're asking on how to find that story, I think at the time, what we did was again trying to touch base on what's happening around us and just find things that is, again, even though we don't use that word often, then relatable to the audience. I think that's what we did. And that if I may ask then on maybe the story that Pierre was presenting, Finding Alice.
Right.
How did you start developing that story? I mean, who is it for? Because I guess Alice in Wonderland is for all ages, and it looks like this one is particularly, for I think probably teens, early teens, yeah. And I think that is something, again, going back to West and East. It's different, I think, here in Asia when you say 13 plus. And, when it is in the Western world, 13 plus. So I would love to hear your takes on that, Pierre and Mylita. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to talk about that. And, another case study that I was going to bring in today was actually one of my former colleagues and a graduate of the film school. She made a great family film called H is for Happiness. It's had international success. It's a fantastic, but it's a coming of age story. And, we're all coming of age, we can identify with the same issues that the, young people are identifying. We're always trying to, improve our identity and chisel our identity and, deal with issues of anxiety. And I think you're pointing out, Mira, something really important, because in reviewing, those slides before I was speaking, the one thing that I realised that it really needed more of was adult an adult kind of content or storyline. And, HS for Happiness, it sort of has that kind of quirky adult storyline going on there that, if mum and dad are taking the kids, there's something to appeal to an older audience as well. So, there's techniques and tools that can do that. I mean, for this specific program, they wanted it specifically, I suppose, in a more educational context that is fun for young people to come and do this VR experience. But it can also be an important element for teachers to guide discussion, etc. So, there were a lot of other usages but technically, if I was approaching this story for a wider general family viewing audience, I'd give something for what we used to call mummy appeal, something that's going to keep, mum and dad entertained or partners entertained, while the kids are watching it.
My favorite example of something like that is actually Finding Nemo. So if you watch it as an adult, you're just as entertained, and not just because it's a great story, but actually there's a lot of things said in that movie that kids don't even understand. And it's an animated Disney film, Pixar film, So I think in telling a younger person's story, if you unless it's going frankly onto television in a time slot that is specifically for preschoolers or something like that, you always want to be able to also talk to adults, and also knowing that young people aspire up. So, 7-year-olds want to watch what their 13-year-old sister is watching, and 13-year-olds want to see what 21-year-olds are watching. So it's, I think often as adults making content for younger audiences, we forget those things.
And we need to actually put those subliminally, in a sense, in a film whereby where the target audience is, but at the same time you want to subliminally as well to be able to touch upon the surroundings so that they all come together. That is the hope, because that's where the family theme actually comes into play. Now, Pak Kimo, given the fact that there are so many family movies that always speaks from the woman's point of view, have you ever thought about something that can actually make Indonesian well known from a patriarch's point of view? Because you're the expert and the specialist more in the jump scare and the excitement type of a movie, but I think Indonesia very much always talk about family issues and talks about family storytelling. But what do you think is deficient or that is not present at the moment, whereby the market is actually quite interestingly wanting or demanding something, especially nowadays when we are in a pandemonium situation? Everyone is all together in one place at the same time, all the time, right? So how can we mitigate this? Because everything in storytelling, when we talk about family, it's always coming from the mom's point of view. Very rare that we would actually get, from the father's point of view. What do you think about that, Akimo?
Really? If not from the father?
That's why you should make a breakthrough.
Okay. I think mine is the Queen of Black Magic one is from the father's point of view.
That's right. Yeah, that's quite a hit of a movie as well that you made.
Well, I don't know. do you mean that what else? What else that?
What else can we do? What else can we explore?
What else that can we do? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of still a lot of things. I mean, even from not you know, not talking about genre stuff, but you know, a lot of interesting. If we're doing horror film, I mean horror genre, most likely the victim or the ones that, you know, attack or whatever in Indonesia, it's sort of a female driven type of thing, because I think Asians, you know, feels that there's a lot of folklore or legends that you know, diminishing a female, and then the female try to got back and you know, attack all the people that, you know, becoming bad for her, you know. For that, it's something that is already classic. I think we should be, you know, be able to package it to be a more interesting way. And I think in terms of family, what else? I mean, everything that we already touches here, I think there's a lot. I think it's just a matter of, you know, making a fine tuning of storytelling that can be improved and make more exciting. I think because I think in every angle there's already been, you know, we tried already this and that, a lot of things that I mean, in Sinetron it's getting crazier, you know, the story, but we haven't, you know, put that in mind that, you know, if you do it really a good structure in it and fine tuning it, I think it could bring something more fresher towards the screen
audience.
Towards the audience. So I think, I don't know, if you ask me something that we never been done before, maybe there's a lot, but I think the ones that we already have, we have to fine tuning it and you know, try to get the much more exciting additional stuff that we can already put in, you know. That's saying that from the earlier films that we already have, we can actually, you know, make it fresher by implementing that, you know, something that relatable nowadays.
Let me turn to the other side of the coin. From your point of view, Mailita, do you think that the family setting and the family themes actually have been pretty much satisfied in the audience demand? Because I think everywhere, universally, everyone always have a storytelling with regards to family, but from the Indonesian filmmakers, have you seen enough, or do you think that the demand is still very much huge out there, that we can explore this, like what Kimo was saying, because there are obviously quite a lot to talk a little bit more about family, but what kind? And
I think we're just getting started in Indonesia. I think there's so many more stories to be told. I feel like the geographical, you know, cultural differences between various parts of Indonesia, you know, are still to be explored. I think because there are frankly challenges to physical distribution, particularly in film, that audiences haven't been able to see things physically in theaters that they now can see. I mean, so it was pretty much free to air and YouTube, right? Because cinemas are quite limited in number. But with the explosion of the OTT platforms, and you know, it's not just Netflix, it's Disney Plus, it's video, it's View, there's so many. And once, you know, that proliferates, I see in Indonesia the opportunity for a lot more diversity in storytelling, a lot more dialect-driven, language-driven, cultural context-driven stories that still are yet to be maybe even written, you know. So I think there's lots more to come.
From the quality point of view, though, do you think we are up at par with the rest of, let's say, the other Western storytelling about the families? From your experience?
Absolutely. why not? I feel really that the challenge lies in having enough new content coming out at a regular pace, having enough development investment in writing and technical talent to fuel the momentum. You know, you can't just have more cinemas, physical cinemas, or just say, okay, the government's going to give a huge handout to the industry or give tax credits or any of those things. You have to do all of these things. And I think honestly, there's a lot of room to grow,
That's good to hear. And I think with regards to that, we can always hope for better investment as well as better interest coming through, because I think one of the key elements between the Eastern and the Western storytelling is that a lot of the Indonesian audience maybe feel that their audience used to be just this big. Whereas with the OTT platform and the streaming lines coming on board, we can actually be in front of the much bigger and even worldwide audience. And on that, I think the opportunity definitely is very vast. Let's conclude our discussion here. And I'd like to get each and every one of the panelists basically giving a little bit of tips or a little bit of a hope with regards of what they would like to see in the family storytelling, be it the Eastern way or the Western way. Because I think coming to the 2021 in this very much of a restrained society at the moment, what can we hope for in looking forward in our TV as well as in our filmmaking industry? It would be very, very much of a hope that we can put out there for the audience to know and for the audience to actually look forward to. Shall we start with you, Pia?
Muting here. Yes, that's wow. Wow, it's such a really, really big question. But I think the most important thing is build bridges, you know, going back to that Danish model, you know, their storytelling was able to cross borders and regions, you know, and literally, you know, it was called the bridge. And that immediately united two countries, and that gave them a lot more eyeballs and a lot more audience. And in building those bridges, then, you know, retaining what is unique to your culture and making sure that you never lose sight of that, the original source or the flame of your idea, and that it is really an artifact of your society. And, you know, it says so much about your society at this particular stage of time. So it's really important that we never forget what is, you know, truly unique from an Indonesian storytelling perspective.
Thank you, Pia. May we have Ibu Mira next, please?
Thank you. I think there are so many great stories or human experiences in a family story that we can explore, especially in Indonesia, that are very much relatable. But I also find that sometimes the Indonesian filmmakers are so traumatic of censorship that they do a lot more self-censor of what can be told and what cannot be told. And that makes it sometimes a bit difficult. And I think we need to also somehow embrace this stronger, you know, stories. And it's something that we have been dealing with for years. And again, it's this word traumatic. Sometimes, you know, you're limiting yourself so much. And I'm actually was developing a story, and there's so much I wanted to do. And everybody keeps saying, do you think that's okay? Do you think that's allowed? You know, do you think isn't that taboo? And it's such a pity. But I think we need to find that, we need to be brave enough to try it. I think that's what I think. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mira. And Pak Kimo, we don't want to make you the last, so you're
Okay.
next.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So I think I'm just continuing what Mira was saying, that I think this is something, I think I'm 100% agree that we need something fresh. I mean, from any family story that we need, that we actually want to tell. And the one thing that limitate us is we always think that okay, we cannot do that, we cannot do this because of the censorship board or whatever it is that we have to do. But I think for the first idea, we have to be brave enough to just put it in the paper and just pitch it and you know, just see what happens, because we have a very diverse, you know, cultural in Indonesia. Every region have a different story. Every region have a different the way of you know, saying and the way of life itself. So I think that's already huge story there, and I think we need to explore that without any restraint and free. And because of this, you know, the birth of this platform, I think we able to do that. We can be able to do that, at least at the certain stage that, okay, this is something that we want to tell. So please, you know, be brave to tell the unique story that we have in Indonesia.
Thank you very much. And Mailita, you're the conclusion.
Those were such fantastic answers. I'll say a few things that have been said before, so I'll say them quickly. I think, first of all, be authentic. It has to be something that you feel that comes hopefully from a place of your own experience or emotion or imagination. So the first is be authentic. The second, absolutely be brave. And be brave, of course, culturally, and whether you think of it as censorship or any of those things is sort of one part of it. The other part of it is put emotions, put your creative work on the line. Be brave in the wholest sense of the word. The other one that I think you know, we still need to do quite a bit of work on is actually persistence. So very rarely does the first piece of writing turn out to be a film, a great film. So work on it again and again and again until you have you know, shown it to your worst critics, asked multiple numbers of opinions, but then bring it back to, again, what authentically was the story that you were trying to tell. So I think being very persistent and not giving up is another really important thing that I would do to make sure that a story gets heard.
Dear panelists, thank you very much for the tips, for the discussion. I'm liking this very much because it brings hope at the end of the day, that we really hit home that family is something we know very well and we know very much. It might be ordinary to us because we're too close to the topic, but we can make it extraordinary with the interest, with the investment, and with the future thinking on how to remain authentic. So we have to make the audience among ourselves liking it, loving it, so that it resonates to the worldwide area. And hopefully with the limitation and the restraint we are currently being challenged, it actually is the best time to be able to bring on the storytelling within our own families. So thank you very much, panelists, for everything, for the guidance and for the tips and the sharing. We hope the audience will actually benefit from this, and we'll definitely see you all again in the next discussion. Thank you very much, Mira, Kimo, Pia, and Mailita. Take care. Stay healthy.
Hey guys, there's a new video competition that we are launching today. It's called Cinta Lokasi Indonesia. We are inviting content creators to produce a 60 to 90 seconds video that captures the look and the feel, people and cultures of their favorite location across Indonesia. phone or your camera, and action!
Thank you everyone for joining the next part of our film workshop, where our expert judges will have the chance to ask questions to our filmmakers, and we can all learn from their experience and advice. Well, let's dive into the first question, which is for Luki, and it's a question from Pia. Do you want to go ahead?
Luki, thank you very much for your presentation. I enjoyed it. What is the style and tone of the piece? I'm really interested in how you're communicating this, and whether you had any comparative films or texts that would help us understand the style and tone.
Okay, thank you, Pia, for the question. So in this film, in this project, I really want to bring the reality to the audience, because basically the story in my film is happening. So to achieve this, I would like to use the floating handheld camera works. So people will feel the scene, and also I would like to use more like practical lighting and natural lighting. So it's more likely they like to like to face the real setup. And also I don't want to use music too much, because I would like to push the sound design and put the diegetic sounds to make the ambience more real. So basically I would like to make this fiction film looks really real to the audience. Yes.
Wow, thank you, fantastic. Yeah, I get a really clear idea, and you know, the way you described it, I'm now with you. I'm on that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right, that's great. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is, I believe, to Chandra for Carnival. The question is from Aaron. Aaron, please go ahead.
Chandra, how are you, mate?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you.
Hey, look, hey, congratulations, Chandra. I, you know, totally kind of enjoyed not only your pitch, but everyone's pitch. So congratulations to everyone first and foremost. So look, it's terrific having such a real event feeding into the story out of the 2017 the governor of Jakarta election. But how does your story, or how does that feed into your high school story, and what are the outcomes you are looking to explore?
What I learned from 2017 gubernatorial election in Jakarta is that a lot of people decidedly to defend their choice of politicians very blindly. They put their faith very blindly and defend everything that their politician of their choosing say. even though they're saying very, very wrong things or suggesting to do a very best wrong things. And the decision to disregard common sense, I think, is very interesting to explore in high school settings, because this is young people who learn to be a better person, preparing to be a responsible adult, and yet they purposely defend their choice of politicians, no matter how ridiculous their ideology is. And I hope for both the audience and the characters in my film, they realize that in terms of in the context of politics, we're not that important for them. We're just a device. Yeah, so you have to really careful to choice of your politicians.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, we've seen that how that's played out. I guess everywhere, not only just in your country, but
Yeah.
elsewhere, such as the US and currently here in our own country, Australia. No, so thank you.
Interesting election indeed. I remember that very well. So the next question is to Evan or Najam from Pia. You can go ahead and ask the question. Pia, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I really love this piece. I think it's fantastic. I really love to know what is the kind of mood or feeling, again, the idea of the tone, and how are you hoping to pitch that when, especially in a room when you don't have the beautiful graphics and things like that. So I just am interested in how you would pitch this cold.
Okay, thank you, Pia. First, Mina, who is forbidden to love because of a myth, need love. But Rusmin, who are loved, want to be with Mina because he want to die. That is the first me and Najam developed this project. And then maybe Najam can be live. Okay.
Yeah.
Najam can be ini show the treatment of director.
Iya, jadi pakai bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa ya, nanti biar di ini sama Evan. Jadi mungkin jadi secara treatment itu kita secara dasarnya itu pakai treatment apa? Secara dasar kita memakai treatment wayang. Jadi secara audiovisual kita akan memakai treatment wayang karena kita ingin membuat membuat pengalaman, karena Rusmin itu karakternya pewayang juga kan. Jadi karena kita ingin membuat pengalaman menonton wayang itu ada di PBL gitu. Jadi kayak lebih, karena wayang itu lebih relate kan, wayang itu lebih sakral, ngomongin tentang mitos juga, dan sebagai filosofi kan, filosofi wayang itu kan filosofi tentang kehidupan. Maksudnya di mana maksudnya tidak ada yang benar-benar gelap. Maksudnya dari sesuatu yang gelap pasti ada satu titik cerah yang akan bisa kita tarik. Jadi secara mood maksudnya secara mood juga secara color, walaupun ini love story, maksudnya walaupun ini tentang romance, tapi kita tidak membungkus ini tentang apa? Maksudnya kita membungkus ini karena romance ini timbul dari dasar tragedi dan tragedi. Maksudnya dari Minah dengan latar belakang tragedi, Rusmin dengan latar belakang tragedi, akhirnya mutual tragedi. Jadi love yang romance-nya itu akan jadi berbeda. Jadi akan lebih sedikit gelap, jadi akan lebih sedikit depresi. Tapi kita tidak akan menggunakan pacing yang lama. Maksudnya pacingnya tetap akan di awal-awal, mungkin karena di awal langsung ditambah konflik yang nanti sampai akhir, yang mungkin sampai sequence keempat, sampai sequence midpoint sampai akhir itu kan akan ada konflik. Jadi pacingnya pun akan lebih cepat. Jadi nggak akan terlalu lambat. Begitu.
Okay, maybe the Najam can say that nothing is really black and nothing is really white. From something dark, there must be a bright spot that we can take, like the philosophy of the wayang puppet. This film Perempuan Bau Lawan Films also showing an event of Javanese tradition like wayang, ciru puppet, batik, and Javanese mythology and language. That's it.
Thank you. That's I love what you just said just then. That's great because it really, you know, it wraps up the whole essence of the piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan sama Najam. Next question would be from Aaron to Fahri for the murders in the Holy Village. Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, question for Fari. When you're writing such a personal story or with personal stories, it's good to match out who your main character talks to get a better sense of the dilemma or the problem. And so, who is this character in your story?
All right. I think there are two questions from you, and thank you for that, because those questions are actually two of the main issues in my story. I've been trying to figure it out. At the beginning, I was trying to make the mother as the main character. But and then it comes to my mind to question the story, because the story is a little bit more complex. It's about political issue. It's about the clash between belief and also about prejudice. And I thought to myself that the mother has a very simple character. She is uneducated, she lives in the village, and she is very submissive and feels inferior because of it. So I don't see that she can carry the story from Act 1 to 3. So I thought like, that's why I also added the boy, because the story will be told from the perspective of the boy when he already grew up, and his mother is already passed away. Because I don't see that this complex story can be carried by the mother, because as I said, the mother is too simplistic to be able to question and to open discussion about it. So the protagonist is the mother, but the perspective I use will be the boy. And the second question is to whom the boy will talk to. I was thinking like in the beginning, I was thinking he will just tell story to the people, to the main audience. But then I kinda not like it when it comes to storytelling that way. It's like explaining to the audience, because it will become a little bit more generic. It's like telling story about propaganda from the government, and then the civilian become the victim. It's kind of like I've been seeing that stories many times. So I was thinking the boy is kind of telling story to his God about this event, because he is very religious, but also he grew up in the different era of Indonesia. So he has different perspective and newer perspective about what happened in the past. So I think it could summarize what happened in the past, but also it could also look forward how we learn from the history. Because I don't want to see the past as something very sad, even though it is sad, but rather I would like to see it as something we can learn about it. Yeah, and also the boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one more thing is the boy, because I use the boy because it's basically me, because I was there during that time, and my mother is the main character and my sister is the other character. So I would like to inject myself there so I can put a lot of little detail and personal details in my story, because it's kind of like that's what I like to do with my story. I think that's it.
Fantastic. And you know, because I know it's such a personal story, and yeah, look, I think it's extremely courageous and brave. And the only thing I would say to you is just, you know, just be wary of how much you really put out there, and just protect yourself. But yeah, I commend you for your courage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fahri. So we move on to the next question, which is from Mbak Mira to Alin on Scattered. Mbak Mira, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate everyone first. Aline, for your story, I think you have a very interesting setup. the age group that you are representing in the story is also, I think, is very interesting, and also the gay issue that you're bringing into the story. But I would like to know more, because in the synopsis, I think you have a great setup for the story and a great inciting incident. But I don't really get to know what's going to happen to the characters. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit of what you have in mind for the Act 2 and the Act 3. What's going to happen to the characters? I guess your main character is Ama, right?
Thank you, Mbak Mira. I think because like this is a type of story where in Act 2 there's just like a lot of things happening, and it's taking place in one place, in one location. There's a lot of dialogue, so it was a bit tricky, to just like describe what's going to happen between the characters. But basically, well, first of all, this is a family that, on the surface, it looks very perfect and harmonious, right? They look like very like similar to each other, like they have like the same mindset, or so they think. But then the inciting incident happens. So basically, of course, with every family, there are a lot of conflicts. There are a lot of like repressed conflicts, unresolved issues between them. So basically in Act 2, all those conflicts, all those secrets are gonna come out on that ship. And for example, we're gonna have characters who's having an affair, and between, like one husband of this person is having an affair with the wife of, the cousin and all that, and it's all gonna spill out. Yeah, but to put it simply, that's what's gonna happen after they found, the strange man in the cabin. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Aline. I think we look forward to, seeing that final result of your project.
Thank you, Mamira.
Thank you, Aline. Mbak Mira also has another question for Luki of our son. Go ahead, Mbak Mira.
Yes, Luki, right? Yes, so our son is also very interesting to me. And again, I really wanted to know more about the characters. I'm very interested in the development of the relationship between Ellie and Lita after their husbands left them. I think you described that somehow the two ladies get finally be together and raise the child. But I'm just wondering, how can you tell us on how Ellie comes to terms with the fact that Lita, has a son from her husband?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mbak Mira, for the question. So to answer this question, I need to explain about the character background and the backstory of the Ellie. So Ellie actually is she comes from a Japanese family who always thought that Japanese people always thought to be patient and to be accept everything that come to them, and also combining Ellie also come from Islamic conservative family who really who also thought to be always follow what the what God said to them. And then, of course, as a human being, I believe everyone will be mad or angry or upset when their husband or wife have another son from another people. But with this kind of background that Ellie has, she tried to rather than she is angry and showing his angry and want to divorce, she tried to accept it, and she think that divorcement is not the option, and she thinks that divorcement will bring another conflict to the family. So she wants to accept it, and she thinks that it may be got punishment about her sin or something like that. So she tried to accept it, but she also tried to moving on, and she wants to keep living. And also in other side from the so there is the from inner side, from the outer side of the Ellie. She actually really loved the family that she already has. She really loved the boy, and somehow she know that the boy really really needs her. So yeah, she tried to she doesn't want to make the family broke again, and then she kept continue with life, and slowly but sure she tried to reconnect again with Lita, and then she communication again, and then suddenly they close each other again. So yeah, that's the
nerimo gitu ya, karakter yang nerimo gitu. Okay, very
yes.
intriguing. Thank you so much, Lucky.
Thank you, Mira.
Thank you, Lucky. That's one complicated situation there. The next question is from Mbak Linda on perempuan bahu lawean. Silakan Mbak Linda. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Nora. Congratulations, finalists. My question is to Evan and Najam. You talk about a story setting that is very unique and very rich in local content. Especially earlier, Najam was saying that he's very interested in actually portraying the wayang style into the filmmaking. Now, wayang usually very well known for the slow pacing, very patient, unveiling things one by one. I'm just intrigued and curious, how can you make the pacing of this storytelling at the end of the day to remain grabbing and to remain people, to make people remain hooked to the storytelling? Because you need to maintain the uniqueness, you need to maintain the authenticity of the story, of the area and local content, but at the same time, you need to keep the audience transform and be with you till the end. Please explain a little bit more or elaborate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Mbak Linda. Aku pakai bahasa Indonesia ya nanti biar Evan. Sebelumnya, jadi sebenarnya untuk mengikat audiens ini sebenarnya karena dasarnya cerita ini kan mengangkat tentang cinta kan, maksudnya mengangkat tentang sebuah nilai yang universal, maksudnya mengangkat tentang cinta walaupun itu cintanya ada di masa tua, tapi itu akan menjadi sangat menarik. Ikut akan cinta di masa tua yang itu mungkin akan menjadi ada momen-momen yang menarik, ada momen-momen menggelitik dari secara ide itu kita menyuguhkan nilai yang universal di cinta. Lalu secara teknisnya, secara treatmentnya, wayang itu mungkin wayang yang kita kenal karena ada satu sudut pandang kan, maksudnya karena ada satu sudut pandang Love Angel. Nah, yang walaupun sebenarnya wayang yang aku tonton tuh secara adegan mereka tuh cepat, maksudnya secara adegan, secara tektokan karakter mereka tuh cepat. Jadi enggak, dan di perempuan bahu lawean ini mungkin kita akan walaupun itu wayang, walaupun itu agak, maksudnya nggak akan ada yang high angle, nggak akan ada yang sangat luas, tapi memang mungkin akan dibuat lebih perspektif wayang tapi dengan sudut yang berbeda-beda. Jadi kayak mungkin akan agak sedikit low angle tapi dengan sudut yang berbeda-beda, tapi dengan adegan pemain-pemain yang pacingnya cepat, maksudnya pemainnya nggak akan terlalu lambat, karena konfliknya juga kan, konflik yang apalagi di pertengahan ke akhir itu konfliknya akan cepat kan, maksudnya pacingnya nggak akan selambat itu. Begitu Mbak Linda. Mungkin Evan bisa menjelaskan lagi.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe this film is about universal love. The first question about this film is, have you ever broke up or left by a person you love? Are you wondering if the person you care about really love you completely, or is there something else? Even when you are not around or you die, maybe you will only be remembered with your imperfection. That's why Najam developed this film with a simple way and can be visual with a simple way too. Maybe that's
Thank you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Najam, for the explanation. Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Najam and Evan. Next question is from Kimo for Fahri, Murders in the Holy Village. Silahkan, Kimo.
Yes. Hi guys. Congrats semua for everyone here. Amazing stories to pitch. This particular that interests me is the pitch called "The Murder in the Holy Village," which is Fahri. It's cool. I just want to ask you something. It's how do you actually because this is based on a real life event, right? How do you portray and how do you gonna treat the whole story itself? Is it really based on the actual event? Because this is a very sensitive matters in a way because of the what's happening there in 1998. But don't get me wrong, this is a very cool concept, and I'm pretty liking it as well. And yeah, how do you actually gonna treat it? The sensitivity of that period of time.
Hello, Kimo. Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's also actually one of the biggest questions I've been thinking like since I started writing this, because this is very sensitive issue and I don't want to steer unproductive discussion when I release this story, because I don't want to make this story as something like becoming too provocative and people couldn't handle it, and otherwise it's not really helping the situation at all. So what I was trying to do, I will create a universe where it's happening in a small village. It is fantasy universe, but the issue which inspired this event in this little village is actually real. But what is happening in the village, in that small community, in that small community is actually not relating as much as to the reality what is happening in Indonesia, but it's like the effect of what happened. So it's happening in the imaginative area, but also it's the cause is the real event. It's just like if people who watch it understand what is the backstory, that's good. If people who don't understand and then someone say, oh, actually there is a real event about that, then people can learn about the history because of this film. But I don't want to make it too how do I call it? Because in Indonesia, when we talk about sensitive issue, we also need to find a way how to make it productive, not just because it's for us, we're still learning how to discuss difficult things. So I need to find a way how to bring up this issue in a way that it's still a film and it's still bringing the issue, but also not stirring too much heat. That's why I want to make it a small village somewhere, and it's fantasy village.
Okay, cool. And just one more thing. You said that the perspective is going to be from the boy, which is you yourself. How old it's going to be? I mean, just curious of the character.
When the character happened, it was actually when he was about 7-8 years old.
Okay.
Okay, but when he told the story, he already in early 20s when he was studying, and his mother already passed away. So it was kind of like new perspective of seeing what happened in the past.
Oh, okay. So the main character is going, telling the story.
Yeah.
Someone, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And is there any twist and turn in the back of the story? Who's he actually telling to?
So the question is there any twist and turn in the?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because the boy is telling the story to someone, right? So
Yeah. So if we read the story, he is a friend with the son of the shaman, yeah, and they are in the same age.
Friend of the shaman, okay.
Yeah, so they also have kind of like complicated relationship and friendship. So there is so many layer I want to put it there about how the younger generation, Indonesian generation, seeing what their parents did in the past and how it affects their relationship in the future, and how those two friendships overcoming the bad situation they experience with their parents. Should we continue this hate? Should we continue this problem? Or should we try to find another way to communicate with each other? Things like that.
Okay, cool. All right. Segitu aja.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Fahri.
Thank you.
So I think we have time for a couple more questions from the judges. Maybe Mbak Linda, I think you want to ask another question?
May I ask on the project Scattered, and I believe that's Aline, right? Yeah. Aline, I'm interested in your storytelling as well, because I think the background of the story, it's quite complicated, and it's like a Pandora box. You're opening it and havoc happens, right? So my question is that, how are you going to tie in everything at the end of the day? Because your title is Scattered. So at the end or at the conclusion of the story or the film, what are you trying to say with regards to the environment, with regards to the women's influence, or whether with what's going on with the taboo thing within the Chinese community to talk about gay issues, or what is it? Because there are so many issues, and I'm interested to see from your perspective, what are you trying to achieve as a conclusion of the project? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Belinda. I think to me, because this is also a personal story and it's kind of like loosely based on my own experience. Well, first of all, story-wise, is of course going to be tied to Juan and Helen, which is the rebel in the family. And I used those two characters because one is the character from the society group that currently not accepted in this conservative, uniform singular family. And the other one is the rebel who always felt like she's out of place, and all this time she always felt like the family is not perfect. We're very flawed, and she's always like on the edge of her seat and looking forward to actually just like you said, open the Pandora box. But when the Pandora box is opened, and then she feels like, okay, she's used to being judged like all these years by the family because, she's different. But then all of a sudden, everyone learns that, hey, you know what, Ama, the elder that we respected so much, he had some, shady background too. And then all of a sudden, like everyone started judging her from her past. And Helen feels like, okay, this is not right. So, all of a sudden she's on the other side of the room looking at, someone that she didn't like being judged harshly. So basically, maybe what I'm trying to say is that there's always more than meets the eye. There's always more under the surface, and you don't always know anyone, you meet in your life, even though you've lived with them for decades, for example. I think more or less it's like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Aline. You're very brave.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, I think, Belinda, would you like to ask Adin on the guilties?
Okay, yeah. On the guilties, I'm a little bit intrigued as well with how the conflicts and the background of the story all being juxtaposed into one. I think what I'm interested in knowing is actually who will be telling the story and whose point of view at the end of the day. Is it the Black Ops, or is it the people who are being influenced by the guilties, or are the guilties is trying to say something?
Hello, thank you, Belinda. For this story, I think the main point of view is Ramli, the main characters. But in the first draft, I found about 4 big plots. Basically, it's an attraction between 2 words. But still, because Ramli in 2 words, the point of view still Ramli. But
Okay,
our each character have its point of view about the theme we want to tell in this story.
Okay. And how are you going to tie it in all together? Because you mentioned that there are 4 big plots, right? And in, let's say, a 90 minutes or 100 minutes, 4 big plots is quite a task, a big task. Are you in the process of eliminating, or are you still going to make those 4 big plots as the priorities?
Oh, of course, I still in 4 big plot. This is my obsession.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right.
It's so tricky, but it's challenging for me. But still, with the big plot, in the end of, I thought I tell myself, I name it with punchline. The punchline, all 4 big plots is my disaster receive for the dawn of Ramli. That's what I like it.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Ms. Linda.
Thank you, Adin. Well, that wraps up the Q&A session between our judges and the filmmakers. We hope that you found the discussion helpful and that you can take some of what you learned today and adopt it for your own project and career. The judges will now move on to a breakout room for the judges' deliberations. Stay tuned, and we'll be back soon to announce the winners.
My name is Andrew Pike, and I'm very honoured to be serving this year as the chair of the jury for the MPA APSA Academy Film Fund. This extraordinary fund has been operating now for 10 years. This will be its 11th year. And each year the fund gives 4 $25,000 US grants to filmmakers across the whole Asia-Pacific region for the development of new projects. This fund is open to members of the APSA Academy, and if you are a member, I would urge you to submit. What we're looking for are ideas, bold ideas. We want to do what we can to empower you with your work, and that's critically important in this time of the pandemic and the constraints that we're all experiencing. We can do something to help you prepare yourself to get your work out into the world as soon as it's possible. I'm very proud of the number of films that we've supported over the past decade that have gone on to win major awards at international festivals, have gone into commercial release in many countries around the world. And it's great that we even have an Oscar winner in the slate of films that have received grants from us. So please do send your submissions. We are really keen to hear your ideas. I'll be joined this year on the jury by Kiki Fung, a film historian and programmer with the Hong Kong International Film Festival, and Miska Taurizia, an independent film producer from Indonesia. And together, we'll be looking at your projects and having robust discussions and looking to see what we can do to help you with your work. So please do send submissions. Don't hesitate. Get your work into us. We want to hear from you. So, thank you, and I look forward to reading your ideas.
imagine all the stories bursting to be told across this rich tapestry of people and culture and experiences. And I am so proud to represent the Motion Picture Association of America today in partnership with the Asia Pacific Screen Awards as we celebrate the MPA APSA Academy Film Fund.
This scheme has helped to create some incredible films since it began, including A Separation by Asghar Farhadi from the Islamic Republic of Iran, which went on to receive, as we've heard, more than 50 awards, including an Academy Award and a Golden Globe.
The winner of the UNESCO Award, Memories on Stone from Iraqi Kurdistan.
I would like to dedicate this award to my people in Kurdistan. This film, I get fund for a script in Asia Pacific Screen Awards.
Asia Pacific is alive with vibrant and fearless filmmakers telling their stories. Just 2 weeks ago, we rejoiced in the success of a film from one of our most courageous filmmakers, Mariam Ebrahini's documentary, No Burqas Behind Bars, which won the prestigious Documentary International Emmy Award.
In 2018, no fewer than 3 films that had received grants from the fund screened in the official competition at the Cannes Film Festival. Burning by Lee Chang-dong from the Republic of Korea, Aika by Sergei Dvortsevoy from Kazakhstan, and The Wild Pear Tree from Turkey.
The APSA Jury Grand Prize goes to the film Burning.
We thank you, APSA, MPA, and all the people who have been with the film Burning.
And then at the Venice Film Festival in 2018, 2 more films were given their premieres.
The winner of this year's award is Memories of My Body.
It is so critical that we and so many partners in this extended family provide a network that allows these stories to be heard, not only throughout this enormous region, but around the world. These stories matter, not only in their own right, but because they're part of a bigger and ever-widening story, the story of all of us.
I am Kiki Feng. It is my honor to be on the selection panel of the APSA MPA Academy Film Fund this year. I was on a panel in 2018, and it was the most rewarding and stimulating experience reading through the submissions and scripts. They reflect a diverse range of voices, perspectives, cultures, and genres. And I was very excited to learn that one of our awarded projects was completed and went on to win an APSA last year. That is A Dark, Dark Man by Adolkan Yasanov, a director I like very much. We're at a time when connection is most needed. And as we probably consume moving image content more often than any other times, meaningful stories and original ideas are also much needed. I would love to see those projects getting the support they need to move on to the next stage. I look forward to being part of the process. And my best wishes to the filmmakers who continue to work and share their passion during such challenging times. Thank you.
Здравствуйте, я Адильхан Ержанов, режиссер фильмов «Черный человек» и «Ласковое безразличие мира», которые участвовали на фестивале АПСА. И мой фильм «Черный человек» в прошлом году получил грант, получил поддержку от фонда АПСА. И я могу сказать на своем личном опыте, что поддержка такого фонда означает не просто то, что фильм будет завершен или фильм будет как-то поддержан финансово. Нет, это означает прежде всего внимание профессионалов со всего мира. это означает то, что репутационно фильм будет ну, как бы иметь какую-то серьезную помощь. То есть для меня фонд АПСа имеет значение в огромном смысле репутационное, имиджевое, потому что, по крайней мере, у нас, казахстанских кинематографистов, авторитет этого фонда просто непререкаем. И многие азиатские кинематографисты подают на этот фонд и как бы завершает свои проекты благодаря этим грантам. И я считаю, что существование этого фонда, оно просто необходимо для независимого азиатского кино. И благодаря этому фонду находят поддержку множество авторских фильмов в нашем регионе, и не только в нашем. Я считаю, что авторское кино, оно просто сейчас в такой ну, шаткой ситуации, что просто необходима поддержка и необходимо существование таких превосходных фондов, как АПСа. И я надеюсь, что мы, независимые кинематографисты Азии и Востока, сможем и дальше обращаться за помощью и сотрудничать с этим фондом. До свидания. Спасибо.
Hey everybody, thank you for being so patient. I think we're just waiting on everybody to be, what is it?
Teleported back in the moon.
Teleported back from the Starship and from the Starship Enterprise back onto planet Earth. It was a fun ride.
We've been warped.
Yes, we have. Thank you for being so patient. Do we have everybody?
I think we do.
Oh, I just saw Noah's kid. Yeah, someone's hungry? Probably.
Almost there.
Okay.
Linda, all yours, I think.
All right. Finalists, if you have butterflies, hold on to it. Just a few more minutes. Thank you very much, judges, for a very fascinating and very lively discussion. No bruises, everyone is safe. So I just would like to go through for the finalists. We will pick the best three in our discussion. And the best three finalists will actually be able to enjoy fantastic prizes. They will be having an online course with the LATC Global Film and Television Immersion course. They will be registered for that particular program. And then the online course will actually serve as an introduction for the filmmakers across the globe to the film as well as the television industry. So you'll get a taste of what the LATV and filmmaking is all about. That's very fascinating. And then on top of that, you'll get, I think, around 30-hour course altogether. So hopefully whatever courses, materials will definitely be very, very beneficial. And at the end of the day, you will also be having a chance to actually pitch your project. The three chosen projects will be able to be pitched once again by the filmmaker. So you can brush up on your skills for presenting your ideas and presenting your goals for the concept that you brought on. So without further ado, let us announce who are the three final winners or the final lucky people who will actually be chosen. Go ahead, I will let Aaron basically present the first winner.
Okay, the first cab off the rank, I would like to, well, first and foremost, before I start, I would like to congratulate all the filmmakers on a wonderful pitch, and I wish all your projects much success in the near future or in the coming future. But the first cab off the rank and the prize for the 30-hour, or the first prize I got for the 30-hour online course goes to Fahri. With the murders of the Holy Village. Now,
congratulations.
Now, Fahri, your film basically stood out due to the fact that I mean, you've got a couple of things going for your film. One, it's you're exposing, or you're looking to discuss a couple of taboo issues in around your culture. Secondly, it's a historic landmark event, but also underpinned by the Indonesian culture as well. So congratulations, mate. I wish you all the very best.
Congratulations, Fahri. And for the next winner, please, Ibu Pia. Go ahead and let everybody know who's the second chosen person. Ibu Pia? Pia, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. Well, I want to say congratulations to the team on Perempuan Bahu Layan. I think that's how you say it. We really love the premise of this film about, how you can love someone if you can't love yourself. We also love the aspect of, it dealing with two elderly leads. And we thought that this was a very touching and important story to tell about, these disenfranchised groups. We also love the way that you interweaved into your premise and the overall tone and style of your piece, the shadow puppetry, and drew on folklore and Indonesian culture. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Evan and Ajam, for Perempuan Bahu Lawean. Finally, Mbak Mira.
The next one, we'd like to congratulate Scattered, which is Aline. Congratulations. We find that your story it is a very strong premise, which also touches taboo issues, and in a great setting, which is a stranded ship that raises the stake of the story. And we really hope that the prize will help you, shape the story even more. So we look forward to a more solid story after you come back from the workshop. Congratulations.
Yay! Congratulations. So that should conclude the script to screen finalist competition. And I would like to say one thing as well to Chandra, to Adin, as well as to Luki. Your project are already being chosen as the top 6. So do not feel discouraged. This is only the beginning. You can always continue doing what you already know best. So please continue, don't stop, because this is the best for you all to be able to do and renew your endeavors. And for Aline, for Fahri, as well as for Evan and Ajam, please make the best use of the 30-hour course, because hopefully this will be a new opportunity for you to be able to contribute more to the Indonesian filmmaking. Congratulations, winners. Thank you very much, judges, and also the panelists. This is definitely a toast to our vibrant and growing film industry as well as television in Indonesia. For that, I thank you very much, and thank you the audience for tuning in, and please take care, stay safe, and we'll see you all together again. Take care. Bye-bye.